Welcome to Justice Insight Cam. We showcase raw bodycam recordings of actual law enforcement stops. Beyond the dramatic footage, we carefully interpret the law, the factual reality, and the profound lessons hidden in plain sight. Let's focus on the pursuit of justice.
Under oath, did you send these emails?
I don't recall.
You will answer, yes or no.
The judge didn't slam a gavel. He didn't even look angry. He just leaned forward, rested both hands on the bench, and slid a printed stack of emails toward the microphones, like he was placing something fragile on the edge of a table. Then he said, quietly, "I'm going to ask one question, and I need the answer under oath." On the other side of the courtroom, Melissa Hart's attorney sat up straighter. Melissa's chin lifted, just slightly, like she already knew she was about to win. Ryan Hart didn't move at all. He looked like a man who had learned the hard way that family court doesn't reward emotion. It rewards paper. It rewards patterns. It rewards whoever can prove what happened when nobody was watching. And right now, in the hush of a Tuesday morning custody hearing, the paper was finally speaking. Yet the judge tapped the top page with a knuckle. "This email," he said, "was sent 3 days after you filed an emergency motion, claiming your child was too terrified to go to school." He turned the page. "This one," he continued, "was sent the same afternoon you told the police your daughter had visible bruising." Another page. "And this one," the judge said, voice still level, "includes the phrase, 'Let's keep it off the record.'" That last sentence landed like a dropped plate. The courtroom didn't react with gasps or shouting. It reacted the way a room reacts when something finally makes sense. Small shifts, tightened jaws, a court reporter typing faster. Because most custody battles don't end with a dramatic confession. They end with evidence that wasn't meant to be seen. And in this case, the evidence wasn't a hidden camera. It wasn't a private investigator. It was a school inbox, a thread of messages between a mother, a teacher, a counselor, and a principal. Messages that told a completely different story than the one Melissa had been telling the court. In less than 15 minutes, the judge would reverse the temporary order that had kept Ryan from his daughter for nearly 8 weeks. In less than 15 minutes, custody would flip. And the part that still haunts people who watched it happen is this: the emails weren't new. They'd been sitting there the whole time, like a truth trapped in plain sight, waiting for someone to finally ask the right question. So how does a parent convince a court that a child is in danger until the school emails appear and the entire case collapses? To understand that, we have to go back, not to the courtroom, to the first time Melissa decided that the only way to win was to turn her daughter into a weapon. Because this story isn't just about one mother, it's about how fast a lie can become a legal reality, and how hard it is to claw your way back once the system believes it. When people picture divorce, they picture the big moment, the fight, the suitcase, the door closing. But the hearts didn't explode. They faded. 12 years of marriage doesn't always end with fireworks. Sometimes it ends with two people sitting on opposite ends of a couch, speaking in careful sentences, both pretending they're being reasonable. Ryan Hart was a paramedic, not the TV kind, the kind who wakes up at 3 a.m. to lift strangers onto stretchers and talk to families on their worst days. Melissa was a stay-at-home mum for years, then picked up part-time work at a small marketing firm once their daughter started school. Their daughter, Emma, was 8, bright, observant, the kind of kid who could tell when adults were lying because she'd watched them practice. The separation started with an agreement, co-parenting, 50-50, no drama. They filed the paperwork. They made a schedule. They told Emma, together, that she would have 2 homes, and both parents would still be her parents. Emma asked the question kids always ask. Am I still allowed to love both of you? Ryan blinked hard, hugged her and said, "More than ever." Melissa smiled and said, "Of course." And for a few weeks, it almost worked. Ryan moved into a smaller place across town, an apartment with a balcony and a second bedroom he made into Emma's room. Pink comforter, a small desk, a corkboard for drawings. Melissa stayed in the house. They traded Emma on Fridays. They texted logistics. They tried to sound normal. Then Ryan started dating, not publicly, not dramatically, just quietly. A woman named Lauren, an ER nurse he'd met on a shift. And the moment Melissa found out, the temperature in the entire co-parenting arrangement changed. Text messages got colder. Schedules got confusing. Small disagreements became email chains. And then came the sentence that didn't sound like a threat at first. "If you bring your new girlfriend around, Emma," Melissa said one night on the phone, voice smooth. "Yeah, I'll do what I have to do." Ryan assumed it meant she'd file for more custody. He didn't understand, yet, what I have to do can mean in a system that runs on risk management. Because in family court, the most powerful words are not "I'm the better parent." They're "I'm afraid." The first allegation arrived like a storm that nobody saw on the radar. A Monday morning. Melissa called Ryan while he was sitting in his car outside the station, drinking burnt coffee and checking the day's schedule. Her voice was sharp. "Emma says you grabbed her arm." Ryan frowned. "What?" "She says you grabbed her and scared her. She says you yelled." Ryan's first instinct was confusion. His second was fear, because he knew how it sounded. He said carefully, "I didn't grab her. We were running late. I guided her to the car. Or that's it." Melissa didn't argue. She didn't ask follow-up questions. She said, "I'm documenting this." That word, documenting, was the first sign that the fight had moved from personal to strategic. That afternoon, Melissa emailed Emma's teacher. Subject line, concern. It was short, polite, carefully worded. "Hi, Ms. Patel. Emma came home upset after her dad's weekend. If you notice anything off, sadness, fear, marks, could you please let me know? I'm worried." On its own, it didn't look like manipulation. It looked like a mother trying to protect her child. And that's why it worked, because teachers are mandated reporters. They're trained, rightly, to take concerns seriously. So Ms. Patel replied with the kind of professional caution she had to use. "Thank you for reaching out. I'll keep an eye out and will inform the counselor if I have concerns." Melissa replied within minutes. "Thank you. Please keep notes." Keep notes. Those two words would matter later. At the time, they just sounded like diligence. Ryan had no idea any of this was happening. He would learn about it when it was already too late. 2 weeks later, the second allegation came. This one had a name. Abuse. Melissa filed an emergency motion for temporary custody, claiming Emma was afraid of Ryan and that she may be at risk of physical harm. She included a statement. She included a screenshot of texts. She included a photo. Not a clear photo, not a forensic photo. A blurry image of Emma's forearm with what could have been a shadow, a faint discoloration, a trick of lighting. In another context, nobody would call it proof. In family court, it was enough to trigger an emergency hearing, because emergency hearings aren't about certainty, they're about caution. Courts would rather temporarily restrict a parent than risk missing something real. And that instinct, again, rightly, exists because real abuse does happen, but it creates an opening for something else, for the person who knows how to perform fear. Melissa knew. Ryan got the notice at work. He stared at the document like it was written in another language. Temporary protective order request. Supervised visitation recommended. No contact pending hearing. He called his supervisor, stepped into a quiet hallway and read the lines again. Then his phone buzzed. A message from Melissa. "I'm doing this for Emma. Don't make it worse. Ryan's hands started to shake. He called his lawyer that same day. Alicia Grant, family law, 10 years, calm voice. She listened, asked for facts, and then said the sentence every parent in this situation hates. Do not contact her directly about this. Do not show up angry. Do not post. Do not vent to mutual friends. We respond with evidence. Ryan swallowed. I didn't do this. Alicia's voice didn't change. I believe you. The court doesn't run on belief. It runs on what we can prove. And right now, the system is tilted toward caution. We have to be smarter than the panic. Before we go any further, I want to ask you something. Where are you watching from? What city? What state? What country? Because the details change, but the pressure doesn't. And if you've ever watched a custody case turn into a battlefield, drop a comment and tell me what you think is the most dangerous part. The lies, the delays, or the way kids get pulled into it. And if you care about stories where truth has to fight its way back into the room, hit like and subscribe. Because what happens next is the part most people don't understand until it happens to someone they know. Ryan's first emergency hearing took place without him. That's not a conspiracy, it's procedure. In many jurisdictions, courts can issue temporary orders based on one party's sworn statements, especially if they claim immediate risk, an ex parte order. Translation: the judge hears one side first, to act quickly. Ryan found out after it happened. He opened his email and saw the order. Melissa was granted temporary primary custody. Ryan's time with Emma was restricted to supervised visits at a monitored facility. No direct contact, no school pickup, no weekend overnights. And the language at the bottom, the part written like a polite warning, felt like a blade. Any violation may result in criminal charges. Ryan sat in his apartment staring at Emma's room. Her stuffed animals were lined up on the bed the way she'd left them. A half-finished drawing was taped to the corkboard. He tried to picture her waking up in Melissa's house, asking where he was. He tried to picture what Melissa was telling her. And then the worst thought arrived. What if Emma starts believing it? Because kids don't know what strategy is. They know loyalty. They know pressure. And they know when a parent cries and asks them questions that feel like traps. The supervised visitation center smelled like industrial cleaner and old carpet. The walls were beige. The toys were sanitized. There were cameras in corners. A staff member took notes like an invisible narrator. Ryan walked in with a bag of Emma's favorite snacks, sealed packages, because rules. He waited. Then Emma came in. She didn't run to him like she used to. She walked slowly, eyes scanning the room, like she was checking whether it was safe to be happy. Ryan's chest tightened. He knelt and opened his arms. Hey, kiddo. Emma hesitated. Then she hugged him, quick and tight. Ryan whispered, I missed you so much. Emma's voice was very small. Mom says I have to tell the truth. Ryan swallowed hard. Okay, he said. Always tell the truth. Emma looked down. Did you hurt me? In that moment, Ryan understood something terrifying. This wasn't just a legal case. This was a narrative being installed in a child. And if the narrative took root, it could last longer than any court order. Ryan kept his voice calm. No, he said. I never want to hurt you. If I ever scared you, I'm sorry. But I didn't hurt you. Emma frowned, like she didn't know what to do with two competing realities. They played a board game. They drew. Ryan watched the staff member's pen move. Every word he said felt like it had to pass through a filter. He left the building and sat in his car, breathing through the steering wheel. He didn't cry until he was alone. Alicia moved fast. She filed a motion for an expedited hearing. She requested a guardian ad litem, an attorney appointed to represent Emma's best interests. She demanded discovery, and she told Ryan to do something that feels unnatural when you're being accused. Start documenting everything, Alicia said. Not in an obsessive way, in a consistent way. Dates, times, what you were doing, who you were with, texts, receipts, calmly, like you're building a timeline. Ryan did. He didn't know how else to survive. He saved every text. He wrote down every exchange at the visitation center. He requested shift logs from his station to prove he was at work when Melissa claimed he was somewhere else. He asked the visitation center for copies of the staff notes. He started therapy, not because he was unstable, but because he didn't want the court to see him as a man unraveling. And meanwhile, Melissa kept pushing her story. She emailed the school again. She looped in the counselor. She mentioned fear and trauma and behavior changes. And the school, trying to do what schools are supposed to do, started paying attention. Here's the problem. When a school gets a warning like that, they watch the child. They look for signs. They document what they observe. And if a child is being manipulated, those observations don't always match the narrative. That mismatch is where the truth starts bleeding through. Ms. Patel noticed something first. Not bruises, not injuries, language. Emma began using phrases that didn't sound like an 8-year-old. One day, after recess, Emma sat at her desk and quietly said, "I feel unsafe sometimes." Ms. Patel tilted her head. "Unsafe how?" Emma stared at her pencil. "I don't know. I just feel unsafe." Then she looked up and added, like she was repeating a line, "Mom says I have to say it." Ms. Patel froze, not because she didn't believe in abuse, because she believed in children, and children don't usually talk in legal language. She wrote a note. She emailed the counselor, not accusing anyone, just reporting what she heard. Emma used the phrase, "I feel unsafe," without specific context. She indicated her mother told her she must say it. The counselor, Mr. Jameson, responded, "I will meet with Emma." And this is where the school's role becomes complicated. Schools are trained to report suspected abuse, but they are also trained, especially counselors, to watch for coaching, because both can exist and both can harm a child. When Mr. Jameson met with Emma, he asked gentle questions. Though Emma was quiet, then she said something that didn't fit the allegations. "I don't want to talk about Dad," she whispered. "It makes Mom cry." Mr. Jameson asked, "Does Dad scare you?" Emma shrugged. "Sometimes he tells me to hurry." That wasn't abuse. That was parenting. Mr. Jameson documented the conversation, carefully, neutrally, and that documentation went into an email, because in schools, emails are how you record reality. Melissa sensed the shift. She showed up at the school unannounced one afternoon. She asked to speak to Ms. Patel. She smiled too much. She said, "I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. Emma needs to feel supported. Sometimes she shuts down. You might have to ask questions." Ms. Patel replied politely, "We're here for Emma, of course." Melissa lowered her voice. "If she says anything at all, I need to know right away." Ms. Patel said, "We follow protocol." Melissa nodded, then added, "Can we keep it off email? I don't want things misinterpreted." That sentence, the instinct to move conversations off record, is one of the loudest quiet alarms there is, because people who are telling the truth usually don't mind a record. People who are building a story often do. Ms. Patel didn't argue. She just nodded. And as soon as Melissa left, she did the thing teachers learn to do when something feels wrong. She wrote it down. Then she sent an email to the principal. "Melissa requested that we keep communication off email. I am uncomfortable with this request." Ryan didn't know any of this. He was living inside the version of the story where he was the accused, where he had to prove a negative, where every day without his daughter felt like a slow, sanctioned theft. The guardian ad litem assigned to the case was a woman named Denise Holloway. Denise wasn't warm. She wasn't cruel either. She was sharp and tired in the way people get when they've seen too many families tear themselves apart. She interviewed Ryan, she interviewed Melissa, she met Emma, she visited Ryan's apartment, she asked about routines, about discipline, about anger, about coping. Ryan answered plainly. Melissa cried, not a single tear at first, just voice cracks, trembling hands, the performance of fear. Denise listened, and then she asked Melissa a simple question. What is Emma's exact disclosure? Melissa hesitated. She says she's scared. Denise waited. Scared of what? Melissa said. Of him. Denise's gaze didn't move. Scared of what he does. Melissa's eyes flashed. He's rough. He grabs. He yells. Denise asked, Any medical reports? Any school reports? Any prior police reports? Melissa said, No, but... Denise cut in, calm. Okay. And in that pause, something was happening. Denise wasn't being dismissive. She was waiting for the evidence to catch up to the story. By week 6, Alicia had a theory. Not about what Melissa felt, about what Melissa did. Alicia had seen cases where real abuse was present, and she'd seen cases where allegations were used like leverage. The difference often lived in the trail. What's the school saying? Alicia asked Ryan. Ryan rubbed his face. I'm not allowed to talk to the school. Melissa told them I'm dangerous. Alicia nodded. Then we subpoena. Ryan blinked. Subpoena what? Records, Alicia said. Counselor notes, teacher communications, emails. Ryan felt a jolt. Emails? Alicia's voice was steady. Schools document everything, and if there's a mismatch between what was alleged and what was observed, it will be there. This is where I want to ask you a question. If you were a judge, how would you handle false allegations in a custody case? Should there be consequences, sanctions, custody changes, criminal charges, or do you think punishing false claims would scare real victims into silence? Drop your take in the comments, because this is one of those issues where people can agree on the goal, protect the child, and still disagree on the path. The subpoena went out, and for the first time, the case stopped being about what adults said in court. It became about what they wrote when they didn't expect a judge to read it. The school district's legal office responded with a digital folder. Emails, counselor reports, attendance logs, nurse visits, meeting notes. It was thick with ordinary language, and in the middle of it was the thread. Ms. Patel, Mr. Jameson, Principal Delgado. Melissa. The dates ran like a pulse. Week 1. Concern. Week 2. Emma seems quiet today, no visible marks. Week 3. Emma said she feels unsafe but could not describe an incident. Indicated mother asked her to say it. Week 4. Counselor met with Emma, or child expressed stress about mother crying and asking questions. Week 5. Mother requested communication off email. Week 6. Mother emailed asking staff to watch for signs and document anything and requested copies of notes. The most damaging part wasn't any single email. It was the pattern. The school had been gently, politely, trying to tell someone that the child was being pulled into adult conflict, and nobody in the legal process had asked to see it. Until now. Alicia read the thread twice, then she called Ryan. Her voice was different, not excited, focused. We have something, she said. Ryan's throat went dry. What? We have the school documenting coaching. We have her trying to move communication off record. We have staff noting no visible injuries and Emma reporting that your ex is pressuring her. Ryan gripped the phone. So the court will believe it? Alicia paused. The court will believe paper more than tears. Yes. The next hearing was set quickly. Melissa walked into the courtroom with her attorney and a folder held tight to her chest. She looked composed. She looked like a mother carrying the weight of protecting her child. Ryan walked in with Alicia and a binder thick enough to look like a small phone book. He didn't look angry. He looked tired, and that, strangely, helped. Judges see anger all day. Fatigue is harder to fake. The judge began with routine questions. Then Alicia stood. "Your Honor," she said, "we move to dissolve the temporary order and request immediate modification of custody based on newly obtained evidence." Melissa's attorney objected. "Relevance," he said. "Speculation." Alicia didn't flinch. "School records," she replied. "Subpoenaed." The judge's eyebrows lifted. "Proceed." Alicia handed up the stack. And that's the moment we started with. The judge sliding emails onto the bench like evidence in a different kind of trial. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need drama. He asked, "Ms. Hart, did you send this email?" Melissa blinked. "Yes," she said. "Did you write the phrase, 'Let's keep it off the record'?" Melissa's lips parted. I didn't mean..." The judge held up a hand. "Yes or no?" Melissa's face tightened. "Yes." The judge nodded. He turned to Ms. Patel, who had been subpoenaed to appear. Ms. Patel," he said, "did you observe any physical signs of injury consistent with the allegations in the emergency motion?" Ms. Patel looked nervous, but her voice was clear. "No, Your Honor." The judge asked, "Did the child ever describe to you a specific incident of physical harm?" Ms. Patel swallowed. "She did not describe an incident," she said. "She repeated phrases about feeling unsafe, and she told me her mother told her what to say." Melissa's attorney jumped in. "Objection. Hearsay." Alicia responded quickly. "Your Honor, this is not being offered for the truth of an alleged incident. It's offered to show the child's statements regarding coaching and stress and the school's observations." The judge nodded. "Overruled." Melissa's shoulders tensed. Ryan sat still, eyes fixed on the bench like he was afraid to blink. The counselor, Mr. Jameson, testified next. He described Emma's anxiety, not fear of her father, fear of her mother's reaction. She said she didn't want to talk about her dad because it made her mother cry, he said. The judge wrote something down. Then he looked at Melissa. "Ms. Hart," he said, "do you understand what it means when a child says they are responsible for a parent's emotions?" Melissa's eyes flashed with anger. "She's a sensitive child," she said. The judge's voice hardened, just slightly. "She's a child," he corrected. Then came the email about the request, the one where Melissa wanted conversations off email. The judge read it aloud, and when he got to the line, he paused. "Why?" he asked Melissa. Would a parent who is simply concerned about their child ask a teacher to remove communication from written record?" Melissa looked at her attorney. Her attorney tried to salvage. "She didn't want misunderstandings, Your Honor. The tone of email can be misread." The judge stared at him. "Then she could have called and followed up with a summary email," he said. "Instead, she asked to keep it off record, while simultaneously requesting staff keep notes. That is not confusion. That is strategy." Ryan felt his stomach drop. Strategy. The judge said it, out loud, and once a judge names it, it stops being invisible. The courtroom shifted. Melissa's posture changed. Her eyes hardened. The tears stopped, because the performance no longer worked. Alicia asked permission to introduce another set of documents. Visitation center reports. Staff notes describing Ryan as calm, attentive, appropriate. Notes describing Emma as affectionate, but anxious about getting in trouble for enjoying time with her dad. The judge read quietly. Then he asked Denise, the guardian ad litem, for her recommendation. Denise cleared her throat. "I have concerns," she said carefully, "about the child being pressured. I have not observed behavior consistent with fear of her father. I have observed significant stress around the mother's expectations." Melissa's attorney spoke fast. "So you're saying abuse is impossible?" Denise shook her head. No, she said. I'm saying the evidence presented does not support the emergency claims. And I'm saying the child appears to be caught in adult conflict. Then Denise added, in a tone that cut through the room, "It is harmful." The judge looked down at the stack. He took a breath. Then he said the sentence that ended the temporary order. "I am dissolving the emergency restrictions effective immediately." Melissa's head snapped up. Ryan felt like his lungs stopped working. The judge continued. "I am granting temporary primary custody to Mr. Hart, pending further evaluation. Mrs. Hart will have supervised visitation, and I am ordering family therapy with a court-approved provider." Melissa's attorney protested. "Your Honor, this is extreme." The judge cut him off. "No," he said. "What is extreme is bringing a child into this courtroom under the weight of manufactured fear." Manufactured. Another word that changed everything. Then the judge turned to Melissa. "Ms. Hart," he said, "I'm also ordering you to show cause as to why sanctions should not be imposed for misleading filings. This court does not tolerate false allegations used as leverage." Melissa's face went pale. Ryan didn't smile. He couldn't. He just sat there, stunned, because the thing he'd been begging for, being believed, felt almost unreal. After the hearing, Ryan walked out of the courtroom into a hallway that smelled like old coffee and paperwork. Alicia touched his arm. "Don't celebrate yet," she said softly. "We still have to stabilize Emma. This won't feel like victory to her right away." Ryan nodded, because in his head, he wasn't thinking about winning. He was thinking about his daughter. What had she heard? What had she been taught to say? How do you pull a child out of a story you didn't write? The answer isn't a judge. It's time, it's consistency, it's safety, it's a parent who refuses to retaliate, even when they have every reason to. That afternoon, Ryan picked Emma up from school, not with lights and sirens, with a court order folded into his pocket. He stood at the front office while the secretary called Emma down. Emma came out slowly. She saw Ryan and froze. Her eyes darted like she was checking for someone behind him. Ryan knelt. "Hey," he said gently. Emma whispered, "Am I in trouble?" Ryan's throat tightened. "No," he said. "You're never in trouble for telling the truth. You're not responsible for adult problems." Emma's lips trembled. "But Mom..." Ryan shook his head. "Mom is an adult," he said. "You're a kid. My job is to keep you safe. We're going to take a breath, and we're going to do this one day at a time." Emma didn't cry. She just looked exhausted, and that is what coached children often look like. Not dramatic, heavy, like they've been carrying someone else's fear in a backpack. The weeks after the custody flip weren't clean. Real life isn't. Melissa didn't suddenly admit wrongdoing. She told friends she was being punished for protecting her child. She hinted online that family courts favor fathers. She cried in supervised visitation sessions. She asked Emma questions, leading questions, the kind that sound like love but function like interrogation. "Did you miss me? Did you tell them what happened? Do you remember what Daddy did?" The supervisor noted it, and those notes became more paper, more pattern, more proof. Ryan focused on routine, breakfast, homework, bedtime, no trash talking, no revenge. He put Emma into therapy with a child psychologist trained in high-conflict divorce cases. The psychologist explained something that makes a lot of parents go quiet. Children in these situations often learn that love equals loyalty, she said, and loyalty means saying what one parent needs them to say. The child becomes the messenger, the comforter, the shield. Ryan swallowed. "How do I fix it?" "You don't fix it in one conversation," she said. "You give her permission to be a child again." Permission. That word mattered, because children who are coached don't just need safety, they need freedom. freedom from being the caretaker, freedom from being the witness, freedom from being the evidence. Melissa's sanction hearing took place a month later. This time, the judge wasn't evaluating fear. He was evaluating accountability. He reviewed the emergency motion, he reviewed the school emails, he reviewed the supervisor notes. Then he asked Melissa directly, "Did you instruct your child to use specific language in order to support your filing?" Melissa looked at her attorney. Her attorney tried to reframe. She encouraged her child to be honest. The judge didn't take the bait. He looked back at Melissa. "Yes or no?" Melissa's jaw tightened. "I told her to tell the truth," she said. The judge nodded. "And when the child said she didn't want to talk about her father, because it made you cry?" Melissa blinked. "She's sensitive," she said again. The judge leaned back. "Ms. Hart," he said, "sensitivity is not a license to weaponize your child. You are an adult. You filed an emergency motion without corroborating evidence. You pressured school staff to keep notes while asking them to keep communication off the record. You created a narrative of danger that this court acted upon, because we act to protect children. That protection was misused." He paused. Then he issued sanctions, attorney fees, mandatory parenting course, a warning that further false filings could trigger contempt, and an order that all communication between parents would go through a monitored app, because trust was gone, not between Ryan and Melissa, between Melissa and the court. Some people watching this story will feel an impulse to pick a side like it's sports, team dad, team mom. But the real side in custody cases is supposed to be team child, and that's why stories like this are complicated, because false allegations are real, and real abuse is real, and the existence of one should never be used to dismiss the other. What makes false allegations so destructive is not just what they do to the accused parent, it's what they do to the child. They teach a kid that truth is flexible, that love is conditional, that safety is a performance. And then, when that kid grows up, they carry those lessons into every relationship they ever build. Emma didn't have words for that. She just had nightmares. She wet the bed for a while. She started asking Ryan randomly, "Are you mad at me?" Ryan would kneel and say, "No, never." And every time he said it, he was undoing a knot someone else had tied. Or months later, something shifted. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a courtroom moment. It was a Saturday morning. Emma was eating cereal at the kitchen counter, hair messy, wearing pajamas with tiny stars. Ryan was making pancakes. The TV was on low, and Emma said, casually, like she'd been thinking about it all night, "Sometimes I said things because Mom looked like she would fall apart." Ryan froze. He turned off the stove. He sat down, and he asked, softly, "Did you feel like you had to take care of her?" Emma nodded. "She would get really quiet," Emma said, "and then she'd cry and say, 'I can't lose you,' and I didn't want her to be sad." Ryan's eyes burned. He kept his voice steady. "That wasn't your job," he said. Emma stared into her bowl. "I know," she whispered. "But I didn't know then." That sentence, "I didn't know then," is the sound of a child returning to herself, not choosing a parent, choosing reality. In the end, Melissa didn't go to jail. Family court isn't built like criminal court. It's built for damage control, for stability, for minimizing harm. So the outcome wasn't punishment for punishment's sake, it was boundaries. Supervised visitation until Melissa completed courses and therapy. Slow rebuilding. A structure designed to keep Emma from becoming a pawn again. And over time, if Melissa chose to do the work, those restrictions could ease. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Sometimes the most important consequence isn't legal. It's relational. It's a child growing up and remembering. A child eventually realizing that love should never require lying. A child eventually understanding that a parent can be wrong. That memory is hard to repair. There's a reason those school emails mattered, because they were ordinary. They weren't written to impress a judge. They weren't crafted by lawyers. They were written by educators trying to protect a kid, using the tools they had. Emails, notes, documentation. And that's the lesson that makes this story bigger than the hearts. If you're ever in a situation where truth is being contested, the loudest voice doesn't always win. The consistent record does. Not because paper is perfect, but because paper doesn't change its story to match the moment. People do. So when the judge flipped custody instantly, it wasn't because he suddenly became brave. It was because the evidence finally gave him permission to act. A permission to protect the child from the conflict itself. Permission to say what the system almost never says out loud. This isn't fear, it's leverage. And if you take anything from this story, let it be this. In family court, the scariest thing isn't always the parent who loses their temper. Sometimes it's the parent who stays calm, while they build a lie brick by brick. And sometimes, the thing that saves a child isn't a heroic speech. It's a teacher writing down a strange phrase, a counselor documenting a quiet confession, a principal refusing to take conversations off record, a trail that doesn't care what you claim, a trail that only cares what you actually did. So I'll leave you with one last question. If you were Emma, 8 years old, stuck between two adults who both said they loved you, what would you need most? A judge's decision? Or one adult who looks at you and says, with absolute clarity, you don't have to carry this anymore?
Thank you for watching today's analysis. If you found this information valuable, please like, share, and subscribe to Justice Insight Cam. Stay vigilant, stay secure, and join us for our next detailed report.